now that we're back on the subject of movies, you have a film festival. You actually have a theater that you're running. What's the state of movies these days, in your humble opinion?
Well, I live in a town in northern Michigan called Traverse City, and it's good. It's not a very big town. It's near the top of the Lower Peninsula on Lake Michigan, and it had an old, rundown movie palace that had been closed for a couple decades. And I got them to let me open it up, and I organized the rehab of it and got it donated to the community. And it's run as a nonprofit, but I restored it to the 1940s. It's this big, beautiful movie palace, and I only show art films. And this is in a rural area in northern Michigan that has voted for Republicans for the last 100 years. So this is the opposite of Ann Arbor in many ways. And yet, I've had it open now for a little over, I think, about 3 years, and I've been the movies I've shown there for, I think right now it's close to 40 weeks of the, what would that be, 170 weeks it's been open. The State Theater of Traverse City, Michigan, and you can confirm this with Variety or whoever keeps the tally, is the number one grossing theater for the film that week of the film that we were showing. And it's the most amazing thing to see, because let's say we're showing Lars and the Real Girl, or because we're showing indie films and things like that. And it will go, here's the box office report. State Theater, Traverse City, Michigan, number one in terms of box office grosses. The Sunset Five is number two. The Landmark Sunshine in New York City, or the Angelica, is number three. And it goes like that. Chicago.
I love it that you're reading the box office report.
Well, because it's so, because I not only read it.
You and Sumner Redstone.
No, but it's not so much that, because, see, we're nonprofit, so I'm not trying to make a profit. I'm trying to prove a point that the flyover area, the people who live out there, want to see good movies. And they will go to foreign movies, they will go to indie movies, they will go to documentaries. They just want a good story. They want to walk out of that theater with that feeling I described. And I may write something about this, or I may make a film about this, how in this place where they never saw a foreign movie up there before, no documentary ever played, Traverse City, Michigan. And now there's lines around the block when I bring these movies, and I have proven that people want to see this, and they want to see it in a movie theater. They want to see it projected on film. They want the movie-going experience. There's been the whole trend, and we were talking about this earlier. The trend in this town toward the loneliness of being alone, watching a movie on your laptop or on your iPhone. We, as filmmakers, those of you who are writers and directors, and those of you who participate in this art, we do this because for it to be a film, means it has to be seen in a room, in the dark, projected on a screen, and you have to see it with strangers. That's what's called a movie, right? I can go home and get out some Hamburger Helper and a bun and make a hamburger, and that's called eating a hamburger alone. You can go to a nice restaurant and pay $15 for a hamburger. Why do people go to restaurants? Why do you go? You have kitchens. You have kitchens at home. Why do people go to restaurants? Because we are social beings. We want to be out and amongst other human beings. We're wired that way as animals, as this particular animal that we are. We like that. That's why the movies really will never die, because people will always want that experience. That's why radio couldn't kill it, TV couldn't kill it, the VCR couldn't kill it, video games can't kill it, the laptop, the iPhone, none of this will ultimately kill it, because we have that need, and we need to sit in the dark. And when we make a comedy, the laughter, we need. You are our accompanying players. You are our supporting cast in the audience, because your laughter is contagious and it creates this. A comedy's not the same watching it on your iPhone, right? You know, when I make a documentary and I'm showing the scene of a mother who has lost her son in the Iraq War, and I'm sitting here in the Writers Guild Theater as I did, watching this on the screen, and you hear the sniffles of people crying, and you could hear a pin drop. That's a powerful collective moment. And your experience and your connection to the film is completely different because you shared it with 300 other Los Angeles. You did it right here, and so to this, we're on the wrong road, and I just want to save the cinema. I'm so committed to this. So
now you are also committed to not having cinema be entirely digital. What's your take on this?
Well, I think there's been a lot of. First of all, I disagree with our copyright laws. I believe in sharing information, and I want you to share my movie with other people. If you know when you do have it on DVD or you're watching it on the computer, I want you to share it. I want you to pass it around. I don't understand why that's illegal. If you download my film, but you, Ann, you have a copy of my book there, and let's say at the end of the night, you decide this person, doesn't have the book, and you say, well, I think you're really going to like this book, and you hand it to him to read, you have not broken the law. But you may have cost me $26, or the publisher $26, because you handed it to him. But there's no law about that. And I just think once this town decided to put our art into ones and zeros, they had no business complaining about people stealing the movie. It's like we took our sofa, us filmmakers, and put it out on the lawn, out by the curb, and we wake up the next morning and the sofa's gone, and we're going, someone stole the sofa. Well, yeah, you digitized the movie. Of course they did. If you had kept it on film, which was a great way to see a movie, wasn't it? If you kept it on film, people can't make a 35 millimeter print in their kitchen. They cannot, right? You cannot publish my book in your basement and put a hardcover binding on it. You can't record a record album or make a vinyl album out in the garage from scratch. So once the industries decided to make this switch and then start to complain about it, and as I was telling you backstage that that FBI thing they put up there, they don't do anything. Only if you're poor do they go after you. If you've got a blanket out on the corner, downtown on 6th Street, and you're selling copies of my movie, they'll arrest you. But my movie, Sicko, was pirated, and it was pirated by a producer at Time Warner. And everybody knows who did it. He has admitted to doing it, to stealing it. Nothing has happened to the guy. When was Sicko? It was 2007. So this is 4 years later, and nobody wants to touch it. And I'm just thinking, well, that FBI warning is just a joke. Or it's just one more example of the two-tier society that we have. That if somebody in this town does it, somebody with money does it, nothing happens to him. And the investigators found that there were somewhere, they couldn't tell how many, they just said it was somewhere between 2 and 20 million downloads worldwide of Sicko. And so how that affects me as a filmmaker mostly is so the box office, instead of being maybe 45 million, was 25 million. And when you go to make your next film, the budget I can get for that next documentary is based on how well the last one did. And I got a great budget to make Sicko with, and I was able to travel the world and show how sane countries treat their people when they get sick. But because that didn't do as well as Fahrenheit, or as well as it should have done because of the theft, then the money for the next film was less. Those of you in this business or indie filmmakers, you know how this works. So I just think the real discussion about all of this and the digitizing of our art, in my unions, this union here, the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, we need to get more active and involved in this because the forces of capitalism are stealing our art from us, and and making it available for the lowest common. I can't stand going to a Cineplex now and seeing a movie. It's projected so poorly. It's milky. It's dark. They don't, as Roger Ebert has pointed out.
But a lot of people argue that the digital version is going to look better and be more pristine than the racked up 35 millimeter thing.
That is not true unless the film was shot digitally. Then yes. If you project the film in the format you shot it in, that's the best way to see the movie. But if you shot the movie on film and you're projecting it digitally, you are not seeing the best possible way. And even if shooting it digitally, and those of us who make documentaries, we shoot digitally because, well, in my case, we have to be very portable because we're avoiding arrest a lot of times. But even then, the digital, high definition digital, still with issues of contrast and motion control, it's still not there yet. It's still not as good as film. It's not as rich. It's not as, it's hard to, I can't really put into words, but you kind of know it, don't you? Or not. And I'm not a Luddite. I mean, thank God for the digital revolution. I'm all over the internet.
You're all over it.
I'm like, I love the internet.
So do you have an army of elves that's like putting all this stuff up for you? How big a staff do you have? What's your little work situation like? And who handles the social media? Do you do it all by yourself?
I have one full-time person does my website, and me.
Wow.
And that's it. Yeah.
Well, that's why I really like you.
And yeah,
I think authenticity is actually very important.
Everything that, if it's from me, it is me that's doing it. If there's a picture up there, I shot it. When I have a film out or a book out, I usually add a second person, just because the traffic gets pretty big. But no, I try to keep this as simple as possible. And plus, I'm a baby boomer, so I don't have the the wherewithal that the younger kids have in terms of knowing every single thing to do and how to interface all the social media. But I'm a very big fan of it, and I got a huge example of this in March, where all the demonstrations were going on in Wisconsin and Madison in support of public employees. And one night, it was a Friday night, I wrote a blog for my site, and I read it to myself, and I thought, oh, this reads more like a speech. I should go to Madison and give this as a speech. And it was like, by that time, 2 in the morning, I called up a friend who I knew he'd still be up. I said, hey, why don't we get on the 6 o'clock, if there's a 6 o'clock flight to Madison, and I'll just go there, because they're having demonstrations every day there, and I'll just go there and give a speech. And I said, great, let's go do it. So we're on our way to LaGuardia, and we call up, we finally find somebody awake at 6 in the morning, whatever, in Madison. And they tell us there's no demonstration this day. It's next Saturday. And I'm like, oh, shit, well, we're already at the airport. Let's just go anyways. Because I knew there were people occupying the rotunda. There'd be people there. So we went. But before I got on the plane at LaGuardia, I tweeted out just a simple tweet to my 877,000 followers and my 500,000 very close friends on Facebook. Hey, I'm on my way to Madison. I just wrote this speech called America is Not Broke. I'm going to give it at 2 o'clock on the Capitol steps. If you're around, come. Of course, it's the middle of winter. It's freezing cold out. Just from the Facebook and Twitter. By 2 p.m., depending on which police report or newspaper account you want to believe, there were anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 people in front of the state capitol to hear this speech.
Which was, of course, all over YouTube, and I posted it, other people, it was everywhere.
I couldn't believe it. It just was like another reminder of the power. We've been handed a gift. This new media can be the great equalizer.
As we see right now in the Middle East and everywhere.
Definitely in the Middle East, but it can happen here too. I believe that. So,
all right, well, let's get into politics. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's do it. So what is going on with Obama? Is he turning the corner? Do you think he's making some right moves for a change? Obviously, you do want him reelected, even though you're critical of a lot of what he's done. He loves this.
Well, it depends on what time of day you ask me. I can go any which way on this because I'm alternately very upset at him.
I know.
And disappointed. And I because I so visibly attached myself to him, I can't walk through an airport or down the street without having to listen to people who voted for him express their utter despair. Utter despair over the. No one can understand how a guy could win by 10 million votes. This was not a close election. This was a mandate from the American people. Even, I call it a super mandate because it wasn't just the 10 million votes. A certain number of Americans had to push through their own personal racism to vote for a black guy. That's how upset they were at everything that had happened in the previous 8 years. So it was an amazing, historic moment, his election. And he had this huge margin of victory, 3 times what Bush beat Kerry with. 3 times more. Both houses. Both houses.
In his hands.
In his hands. And for a few weeks, the 60 votes in the Senate, right, for almost 2 months. And he didn't come in like Roosevelt in those first 2 months. He had the 60 votes in the Senate, he had the House, he had himself. And to squander that moment, history will not be kind to him for his first term.
So you don't give him any points for health care?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that. Because it's not what we needed. We needed true universal health care for everyone. And we needed it now. Most of the law takes effect in 2014. Trust me, if they win next year, there ain't no 2014. All right, so a whole bunch of people are going to die in the meantime. The report from Congress last week, 44,000 Americans die every year for one simple reason: they didn't have health insurance. It kills 44,000 of us. That's almost 15 9/11s every year in this country, and we allow it to continue. So no, it was not what I wanted, and I'm not against compromise, but he starts compromising before there's even the first talk of anything. And I don't understand. Listen, I got to tell you something. I went in that voting booth in Michigan, and I knew who I was voting for. And I knew it when I looked at the ballot, and I couldn't believe the ballot. His name on the ballot. It didn't say Barack Obama. It said Barack Hussein Obama. How many political consultants do you think told him, Jesus, don't put Hussein on the ballot. Don't put Hussein on the ballot. And he said, no, that's my name. That's what kind of guts he had. Those are the balls he had. My name's Hussein. And it's Arabic. It stands for kindness. That's what it means. That's my name. That's the name that'll go on the ballot. Wow, right? Wow. That's who we voted for. And that's not what we got. And it has been hugely disappointing. Now, let me just finish with this. His problem is not Michael Moore or Ann Thompson or probably most of the people in here. You know, if it's between him and Michelle Bachmann, I know that's what's called a no-brainer. Literally a no-brainer. I just made that up. I didn't know I said it till I said it. And then anyways, but that's not his problem. Isn't us, is it? His problem is that the base aren't going to bring 20 people with them to the polls, right? People are going to go, they're going to vote, but they're not going to work the phone banks. They're not going door to door because as liberals, which to me implies it's very hard for us to BS people, our fellow Americans. And you can't go to the PTA and tell people things are so much better now 3 years later, right? We can't do that. How do we convince people you've got to come to the polls? That's just not going to happen. So that's his big problem, that there's a depressed vote for him. People are going to vote for him, but they're not going to bring the people. And the New York Times story on the front page last Saturday, if you haven't read it, great story. All the surveys, and they've done all the science on this, that for all the moves that he's done to the right and to the center, this New York Times said he hasn't gained a single vote from Republicans. He's lost most of the independent vote, and he's lost some of the Democratic vote. It is a wrong decision that got made by him and his advisors. And what did you see starting Monday morning? The new Barack saying, we're taxing the rich, and I don't want another word out of your mouth. That's what he said. I mean, I'd never seen him talk like that. And today, He's standing there in Cincinnati on the bridge linking Boehner State to McConnell State, saying, it sounded like, instead of Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, it was, Mr. Boehner, rebuild this bridge. And 2 weeks ago, the Justice Department decided to go after the 17 banks that created the mortgage fraud crisis. And for the first time in the last 2 decades, the Justice Department is going to try and stop a corporate merger between AT&T and T-Mobile. So little indications that he's got the message. But if I had 5 minutes with him, oh man, if I just had...
What would you say?
Oh man, if I had 5 minutes and he'd listen to me, this would be a cakewalk next year. Because I'm living in Michigan, I know exactly what the people need, and it's not just another speech. He won't win it with a speech. The people want a perp walk. They want to see Wall Street bankers in handcuffs walking down the street with it. They want Glass-Steagall back. They want the regulations back. They want their homes back. They want a moratorium on foreclosures. And they want what he's trying to do now, which is real middle-class jobs that pay wages to people where they can afford things. The kids today at the UC campuses, today protesting, you'll never see that on the news tonight. I marched with the nurses today at the Kaiser Hospital. You'll never see that on the news tonight. The people occupying Wall Street down there, you won't see that on the news tonight. The 1,000 that got arrested in front of the White House 3 weeks ago with Bill McKibben, the environmentalists on the tar sands thing, 1,000 arrests. Can you imagine if there 1,000 Tea Partiers had been arrested in front of the White House? It'd be the top story for the entire week. And yet 1,000 environmentalists are arrested. You don't even know about it. It's an uphill battle here. But Obama can't fight it alone. And in some ways, yes, we have to have his back, but he has to be the guy. And he's not been the guy. 2 weeks ago, he before he got into the new Barack, when he was still trying to play nice, he said, "Okay, I'm gonna veto my own EPA air pollution rules," and he's turned the air pollution standards back to before George W. Bush. The standards Bush has had better standards than the ones that Barack Obama. Because it was about the whole debt ceiling and the deficit, and he threw them a bone because they're saying if you do this, businesses are going to have to spend money on that, and they won't be hiring people. So, okay, he goes, okay. And it's like, we don't need that anymore. He has got to trust. I'm sorry, that's the last thing I'll say.
No.
He's got to trust that he lives in a liberal country. We live in a liberal country. It is not a conservative country. Now, most Americans will not call themselves liberals. Most Americans don't call themselves anything, right? Most Americans are concerned about why the Bachelorette picked that guy instead of the nicer guy from Sonoma, right? Are you with me?
Now, you have an interesting theory about why Obama why he plays nice the way he does. The Invisible Man?
The Boehner and Cantor, and I forgot who else, they've admitted on inauguration night, McConnell went to dinner on Barack Obama's inauguration night. And they must have been in shell shock with that crowd that was on the mall. They decided that night that the only way we're going to stop this is to literally grind the wheels of government to a complete halt. So we are going to oppose everything. There will be no compromise on anything, no matter what. And that's exactly what they've done. We are going to behave, in other words, as if he doesn't exist. Just shun him, ignore him. In 4 years he'll be gone. We'll be rid of him, and we'll get our guy in there. And that's what they've done. And I've been thinking about this lately because I went back to I was rereading The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, this great book that you probably read in high school, from 1952, where Ralph Ellison talked about being black in America and what it meant. And it meant you were the invisible man, that you could be in the same room and white people would just talk past you. You could be in the elevator and you weren't there. You were a ghost. You lived on the other side of town, out of sight, out of mind. You did not exist as a human being. You were the invisible man. They have treated him as if he's the invisible president. And I don't use that term without the racial connotation. I mean it. I mean it because I know that that's there. You know that that's there. They know that that's there, and they've manipulated the Tea Party people and others who just have been upset for 3 years now. And I don't know why he didn't get that. I don't know why he didn't understand that. Maybe if you've read his books,
It's his own theory. I mean, it's what he believes.
It's
compromise. It's
yeah,
what he
it
believes.
does. Yes, and it's how he got through living in Hawaii. I mean, there weren't many African American students in his school. And so, and I don't know if any of you went to a white high school, mostly white high school, that had maybe a few black students. You remember how those black students, for one thing, they were usually, at least in my case, in my school, the most popular kids in the school. But they worked so hard to get along, to make people not be afraid of them, because of the way that white people are raised instinctually to have that fear. And I think that he has just worked overtime, and it's like you just want to give the guy a hug and go, you don't need to do that. We've got your back. This liberal country that I described here